So I want to welcome you to 10 Minutes of Morning Calm and great to be joining you today. And today we're looking at kind of I think, a pretty fascinating topic, which is how do angels fight? And it was interesting, just people talking a lot about like what's the role of religion and politics and the Pope and the president, all these tensions. And it is interesting to watch, and it's instructive, when we try to look at sort of spiritual stuff and look at all this from a spiritual perspective. And it brings up the idea, like, how do angels fight? That I think we can assume they're good people in the world, and sometimes we come to disagreements. I'm sure you have friends you see all these things differently from, and as well as like needing to speak the truth clearly and from love. That's also extremely important. So I want to talk today about how is it that angels fight, quote unquote. And it's kind of two directions. One is looking at how they fight the evil, and that's pretty basic and not surprising. From a Swedenborgian perspective, angels fight through presence. Just simply their presence creates the protection, the advancement, the reining in of evil. Just their simple presence does it. And in my mind, I was thinking to you look at the story of Easter, which we're just coming out of. Angels show up, and all of a sudden the guards like just act as if they're dead. It's just their presence is simply so powerful. And you and I both know people like that. People who can just cut to the chase. Just for some reason, their presence is so clear and their concepts are so clear and their dedication to what is right is so clear that it's inarguable. Like they're just there, and they change the whole equation of a room. I know that kind of person tends to, and I've been privileged to be around those kind of people many times in my life. You can be having a contentious meeting and just waiting for them to say something, and they do, and all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh yeah, that's it." That's presence fighting, and it's not fighting like with a big sword hacking people up. It's presence fighting. So presence. How do angels fight evil? And notice I'm not saying the evil people. I'm just saying evil as a whole. Just simply bring presence to it, and this idea of first things first, talking really clearly, and most importantly, acting with a lot of clarity as well. So there's a complete integrity between words and actions. That's what presence really brings when word and action lines up. And then other one is, well, how do they fight good? And it's kind of interesting, right? Because again, I'm not saying how do they fight the good, but there clearly are times where really good people get into arguments about something. Really good people. And how is it that angels go into that kind of thing? And here I go back to a wonderful paper by an amazing professor I had in seminary here. And he was truly incredible, Reverend Dan Goodenow. And he talked about like how angels, from a Swedenborgian perspective, how they fight the good, they fight the good fight in the round, which is kind of interesting. So many times there are challenges out there, and people have to have conversations around hard things. And there's inevitably, here's the question, gets presented out there, and you have an angel from the north, from the south, from the east, and the west coming to talk about this. And that's, whether you see that as literal or poetic, it doesn't really matter. But you have to see the wisdom in that. In other words, it's this belief that, oh, we have to see things in the round. Now, the simple continuum is this: you have east and you have west, east to west, east to west, east to west. East are the ones who are like hands down the most loving, and that light dims as you go to the west. And obviously, this is nothing against California. This is just an analogy, a paradigm that he would have. So he'd ask us to think of it that way. And then the other one is north to south. So here's a love continuum, like more loving going over here to the east, less loving going over here to the west. And then the north-south continuum deals with wisdom. So in other words, intelligence and real life wisdom. And here it goes from the south, more wisdom, more life knowledge, up to the north, which is less and less. And the easy way I always thought to remember that is when you go way far north, there may be light, but nothing grows. Essentially that kind of thing, sort of a sterile kind of wisdom. And it's interesting, like it's always a little hint for you. It's always the angels from the east who get it the most because they're the ones who are most coming from love. But it's not that the other perspectives are wrong. It's that they are part of it in the whole. And it's this idea of in the round and knowledge in the round and wisdom in the round. There's never a shaming like you're wrong, you're an idiot. What are you thinking? No, it's just it's knowledge in the round that's how we have to build it. So when we look at it, the moral of the story is pretty simple. Is when fighting evil, bring your presence, and that's that integrity between word and action. Bring your presence. Bring your presence. Bring your presence. And when you're in a battle around good, and again, that may be a dear friend you have that you have a very different perspective than they do. Just remember inclusion. So presence and inclusion. And the inclusion part means, yeah, north, south, east, and west. We're going to have that. Now that doesn't mean that there isn't, on a continuum answers we want to stretch for. Absolutely. And those answers always go east, so to speak. They always go to the loving place over here that then can build back through and enlighten all the other ones. But that's the effort, and that's the endeavor, and it is slow, and that's why we really need to be careful anytime we believe that there is one person with all the answers. We need to be super careful of that, because that does not allow for the inclusion that helps us all to grow. And that's such a miracle actually of the American system. I think it's based on that, and that's based on a clear spiritual principle as well. So friends, takeaway for today, the idea of presence and inclusion. So when things are challenging, really bring presence to them. Bring your presence, which is your integrity, that matching up between words and actions. Be strong in that. Be very strong in that. The other one is inclusion. And inclusion means that you're willing to invite in all perspectives to give them a hearing, because that is what really matters. I know many, many people are really good people, and they have very different opinions and very different perspectives on everything that's going on. And include them in your conversations, and then include them in the round kind of perspective, because that really does matter. So may you have a day where you are practicing presence and or inclusion as the Lord gives you to see it. So with that, dear friends, what we're going to do now is we're going to shift gears here. And when we shift gears here at New Church Live, we're going to come in for a soft landing. And soft landing is this. I'm going to ring a prayer bell. We're going to say a little prayer, do a little meditation, a little prayer, and a little blessing. And then we will be able to say hi, to our friends on Facebook today, if the internet is cooperating here in my office. So with that, dear friends, let's get a little breath and the prayer bell. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends, let's take a little quick look. Fingers crossed that this will all work out. It will probably not, but we will try anyways. Just see what happens here. All right, did go on there. All right, nothing on there, which is fine. I'll flip on over to here. All righty. Okay, sorry about this, folks. As always, the internet is not always our friend. Let's see if we got anything here going. I'm sorry. Again, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Anyways, God bless.